and Denmark are creating an 18 billion rand green hydrogen fund for investment in South African projects. President Ramaphosa hosted a joint working visit with the prime ministers of both countries today. Business anchor Rofhiwa Madzena is attending the event. Hello, Rofhiwa. Let's take a look at how significant these investments are. There's a lot of money, a lot of plans. It comes down to implementation, though, doesn't it?
That's right, Gareth. So the President, in his closing remarks at the Business Forum, indicated that the Netherlands as well as Denmark are very important trading partners with South Africa, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to draw on the knowledge and the skill set, as of course the resources, when we transition to just energy, and of course in doing so not leaving any community behind. With me I've got the CEO of the Climate Fund Managers, and it's Andrew Johnston. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I just want to get a sense from you in terms of the kind of conversations that you had this afternoon and the partnerships you're looking to create as we move towards the just energy transition that has been lamented over the last few months or perhaps years.
Great. Well, thank you very much for those questions. The nature of the conversations have been really around what the just energy transition means for South Africa and also what it means in the global context. We are facing a crisis of climate change, and it's not going to wait for us. So the just energy transition is already underway, importantly, as is the adoption of hydrogen, of the future oil, of future fuel economy. The conversations have been, how do we affect that? And how do we do that through people? How do we do it through technology? And importantly, how do we do that through finance? What we announced today was the establishment of a $1 billion investment fund, $1 billion, in collaboration between South Africa and the Netherlands. And that investment fund will operate on a blended finance basis to mobilize capital for both the development and the construction of hydrogen-related projects. So it's very exciting. It's a $1 billion is a small step forward in terms of a $250 billion challenge, which needs to be financed over the next 25 odd years, but it's a very catalytic $1 billion. It's a $1 billion which will support developers in the development of their projects. It will mobilize society, it will fund evolutions of technology, and it will create both momentum and belief in the transition towards a greener economy.
I mean, in South Africa, $1 billion is quite a significant amount considering our energy crisis at the moment. And you speak about a blended financing, and just for the benefit of our viewers, what does this mean when it comes to the funding of the different hydrogen projects that we hope will be coming onto the national grid in the medium term?
Okay. Blended finance is a new form of financing which aggregates capital from a number of different types of institutions. Technically, blended finance means the use of public sector funds to mobilize private sector funds at scale. So it's aggregating money from development banks, from philanthropy, from governments, and from the private sector, and putting it into structures that are able to take much more risk than traditional financing structures allow. That is important because the world ahead of us is fraught with quite significant unknowns. And these are unknowns of technology, the unknowns of different marketplaces, and the pace really also has a place in terms of the faster you go, the more risky it is. So what blended finance is, it's almost like a 4x4 of capital. It enables us to move fast, enables us to make bold decisions, enables us to develop and build in an accelerated manner.
Moving fast, I think that's what we want to hear. And I just want to know, from a funding perspective, as a funder or as a stakeholder that is key to the development of these projects, do you find that the South African regulatory environment, when it comes to alternative power solutions being introduced onto the national grid, is conducive enough for financiers and project developers to move as fast as you would like them to?
Yes, South Africa's got a very enabling framework for the financing of infrastructure for both the public and the private sector. It has so for the last 25, 30 odd years. The public and the private, through PPPs, have financed roads, they've financed telecoms, they've most recently financed an abundance of renewable energy projects. So the frameworks absolutely do exist. So too does the capital markets, augmented by risk-taking capital from developed countries like Denmark and the Netherlands and the European Commission. In combination, this capital will be able to move things forward at an accelerated pace. So South Africa is well placed to do this. It knows how to do so. All it needs is that catalytic trigger of belief and to get the wheel spinning. And that's what this fund is there to do.
Is there an indication on when the funds will actually be available for the project developers to access?
When?
Yes.
Well, that's a great question. We hope to have the development fund up within the next 6 months. We already have commitment from the European financial institutions, and that money will be spent on the development of these projects, which development phase is probably going to take another 18 months to 2 years before you start seeing these projects coming into construction. During that period, we'll also be mobilizing local capital from pension funds, insurance companies, and the building will probably start within the next 2 years or so. And these projects probably will start making hydrogen within 2 years of that. So we're going to start seeing hydrogen into the system, I'd say, within the next 3 years or so.
Thank you so much for your time, Andrew. That is Andrew Johnstone joining us there to speak about the fund, which is a blended one. You've just heard about that blended financing and how it will really just spearhead a lot of the projects that we are hoping to see within the medium term, contributing to the national grid. But just for some context, Gareth, we did hear from the President earlier on, as I mentioned, and just for some context in terms of the importance of the level of investment that has been pledged here via the 6 partnerships that were announced. This is what the President had to say.
We also have the skill base to build some of the components that these projects will require. From solar to biogas, from wind to battery storage, these investments are leading one of the most important growth industries in our country. And we already have seen that in one part of our country, particularly the Northern Cape, we've been able to attract more than 100 billion of investments, and it is leading to the growth, enormous growth in that part of the country. Such investments are particularly important as our country currently faces severe electricity challenges. The development of new renewable generation capacity alongside the recovery of our own existing fleet of power stations that are coal-fueled or generated is vital for our long-term energy security.
That is President Ramaphosa there giving us a sense of why this business forum and the engagements between the 3 countries is very important for the economic development of South Africa, but also the just energy transition. What hasn't been too great, Gareth, though, is the market movement today. So the JSE closing over 1.5% in the red today. Broad-based losses. We saw losses coming through from the top 40 shares, industrials and resources as well, contributing to those losses. Also quite worryingly, again, the rand has reared its volatility, losing some ground against major global currencies. The big global story here, Gareth, is that there are a lot of economic data points that are out this week, including the interest rate decision or the direction from the Federal Reserve, as well as the Bank of England, and of course emerging markets like Turkey as well. So market participants are not too optimistic, or they're just watching cautiously as they see the direction that central banks will be taking. And then, of course, the financials remaining, albeit marginally, in the green to end off the trading day. Here's a closer look at those markets.